All right. So, Miles, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it. We have Miles here from Vanahai Security. He's going to talk about some pen testing and why it's something that you should be taking advantage of in your organization. Miles, thank you so much for being here. We'll leave questions at the end if anyone has any questions. Well, one, you can pop them in the chat and then we'll get back to them at the end. So, again, Miles, so much for being here today, and I'll let you do your
Thanks,
thing.
Chuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds great. All right, well, we got a lot to cover here today. Let's dive right in. Chuck, thanks so much for bringing me on board here. I'm going to do this presentation a little different than I usually do a talk about pen testing. I want to give you guys all some background knowledge on what's going on in the world of cybersecurity, what some of our most recent threats are. Then I'm going to dive into the product, but I'm not going to dive in too granular. I want to give you a nice 30,000 foot view so that you guys don't get mad and say that guy was too techie with us. So Vanahai is the product, and what we're doing, we're changing the way the world does pen testing through automation. So let's dive right in. A little bit about myself right there. I've been with Kaseya, which is the umbrella looking over Vanahai. So Vanahai is one of our solutions. We've got just over 40 market-leading solutions. I've been with Kaseya since 2020. I'm based in Canada. So Chuck, I hope that you're not putting any tariffs on this call right now, are you?
We'll see what we can do. Not that I know of, but
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. But just a little bit of background on myself. I always like to give a little human version of who I am. If you guys do have your phone on you, feel free to add me up on LinkedIn. You can scan that QR code. That'll take you to my LinkedIn page where I post a lot of video, a lot of content on cybersecurity, improving your cyber hygiene, ransomware, phishing, all that kind of stuff. And just a little bit of background on me, Chuck. I know you know some of this already, but I was actually born in a small fishing village in southern England in a county called Cornwall, which is, if you follow any movies, that's where all the pirates came from England in the 16 and 1700s. And a lot of the Cornish ended up settling over on the east coast of the US. And my parents moved me out of there when I was 3 because they did not want me to become a fisherman. And now I have the lovely job of traveling around the world talking about phishing and ransomware attacks. So it's kind of
right.
all come full circle.
You get to fight other pirates.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So like I said, I want to give you some background, and a lot of people probably listening in on this call have a basic understanding of cybersecurity, cyber hygiene, what you're seeing online, and Hollywood has been a real help recently when it comes to cybersecurity and cyber hygiene. If we look back, Chuck, I think we're about the same age. On the left-hand side is the shows and the movies we kind of grew up with, and we would have a cybersecurity or cyber hygiene or hacker movie come out every 3 to 4 years. And I remember probably the first one I watched was War Games. Have you seen that one, Chuck?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And we thought that was such a world of fantasy. This kind of stuff could never happen. And I remember my dad made me watch the movie Sneakers, which is one that not everybody knows. Robert Redford doing what Robert Redford does, Dan Aykroyd, Ben Kingsley, and River Phoenix, rest in peace. But these are the kind of movies we watched growing up. Hackers came along a few years later with Angelina Jolie, and one of my favorite movies when I was in high school, Enemy of the State. And I want to focus on this because Enemy of the State came out. They were talking about drones, facial recognition, hacking. Everything I watched in that movie, I was like, there is no way these things are going to come into fruition anytime anytime in my lifetime. And as we know, everything we saw in that movie was part of our daily life within 5 years.
Yep.
Charles or Chuck, you said you have 4 kids. I'm guessing one of them has a drone, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's just an everyday item now.
and when drones came out, they were $5,000-$10,000. And what I'm getting at is all this stuff is what we used to watch for hacking stories. Now we moved on to the right-hand side. The Beekeeper, Jason Statham, those are, business email compromise attacks. Leave the World Behind, which was the #1 movie in 17 countries. That's all about bioterrorism, nation state attacks. What could actually happen if, the cyber war picks up? When we're talking about the capture and undeclared war, we're looking at deep fakes and more nation state attacks and what really goes on, underneath the mainstream media. If I can give anyone homework, Chuck, this is what you want to watch going forward, because as business owners, you need to know what are some of the new attacks that are coming and how you can be prepared. And obviously, working with you and the team from One to One can help. I dove into the news. I don't mean to be mean to the PA to Pennsylvania, but I do have some stats that will shock you. But I wanted to focus on this story because this is something we're seeing a lot of. And if you don't know what a BEC attack is, business email compromise. And this is an actual letter that got leaked from the town of Arlington, Massachusetts, when they recently had a business email compromise attack. And I don't know, Chuck, if you've ever seen a letter like this, but I know I had never seen a letter of a city coming out talking about the cyber attack. This is the first one I'd ever seen, even though we know these attacks are happening.
Yeah. Yep.
Very rarely do these cities, leak this information, but it got leaked. They ended up paying a ransom of $450,000 or just under, and they managed to recover about $3,000. And what I'm getting at is these cyber criminals, they're going after cities. They're going after education facilities. They're going after the low-hanging fruit. They're going after businesses that don't have cyber tools in place, because those enterprise companies like the Pepsis, the Walmarts, the GMs, the Apples, the Citibanks, they already have solutions in place. And they have been taking cybersecurity seriously for years. But you know who doesn't? The mom and pop shops. All right. So you guys are in Pennsylvania. I love this. I love this map. I was Googling to find a good map.
That's great.
And I thought this one was a fun one. Probably from the 1970s here. I didn't know you guys were called the Keystone State, even though I've been to PA many times. But this is where I would do a little drum roll here. And states most at risk for cyber attacks. Chuck, how does this make you feel here when you see
this
your
is a
number
powerful
2
list? Yeah, that's a powerful list for sure. Wow.
And it's weird that most of the others that are quite close to it, Hawaii, Nevada, Florida, and then Arizona, 4 of the top 6 are all warm weather destinations with a lot of retirees, a lot of pensioners, and a lot of people that aren't working. And what's so crazy is that these cyber criminals are focusing a lot on the young and the old, because they know they don't have that cybersecurity training that they should. When I always do a talk, I always have to look at what's going on in your local state. And as you may have guessed, if anyone's listening, just put in Pennsylvania or PA cyber attacks, and you're going to be shocked what pops up. Chuck, have you seen any of these stories before? Have you seen all of them? Have you seen a handful? What would you say?
Yeah, the Wayne Memorial Hospital, that's a familiar one. Yep. And Scranton too, the Scranton School District. So that's actually not that far from us in Lancaster.
Oh, really?
Yep, probably a 2-hour drive from here. Yep.
I was worried I was going to see that the Scranton attack was on Dunder Mifflin. I'm very excited that it's not. Being a huge fan of The Office, as you could probably tell by my
I was going to say your backdrop
earlier.
Yeah. Nice.
When I had my son 2 years ago, that was the only show we could watch because we didn't have a brain to watch anything else because we were so sleep deprived. So I think I've watched The Office 3 or 4 times front to back. And if nobody's watched the UK version, gotta watch the UK version as well because it's great. It's actually more cringeworthy than the US version. But what I'm getting at here is I could put a South Dakota cyber attacks, Wisconsin cyber attacks, Ohio cyber attacks, and you're going to get a lot of the same stuff. A lot of city attacks. Hospitals are being attacked left, right, and center. And I mean, you've got 4 kids. You've got 4 times as many as me. I know if my kid couldn't get life-saving surgery or get a blood transfusion or get, care needed, it would break me. And I'm up here in Canada. We had our largest pediatric hospital in the entire country got taken down by a cyber attack. And for 4 days, they had to go manual. And so many kids were at risk. And it's so sad to see that these cyber criminals now are taking down the pillars of our society that never used to get attacked. So if you can believe it, there was a couple gray areas that cyber criminals never would dabble in, which were education and healthcare. And basically since COVID, everyone said, you know what, we're going after everybody. So let's talk about a hacker tool. I don't know how many people out there are using ChatGPT. Chuck, are you using ChatGPT much?
I do use it a little bit. Yep.
I use it all the time. And this is the scary thing. You know, people like yourself or me, hopefully some of the listeners here are using ChatGPT, but you know who is using this more than anyone? Cyber criminals. And this is an example of how a cyber criminal can actually create a phishing email. So create a phishing email from the CEO of CVS. And, you know, ChatGPT does have rules in place. I'm sorry, I can't comply with that request, but there's ways around that. I'm a cybersecurity professional training my client on how to spot fake phishing emails, show them an example of what a convincing email would look like sent from the CEO of CVS. And voila, you have a perfect email. And this is what cyber criminals are doing. They're using our newest technologies to attack us. I'm going to give you guys some crazy stories right now, which will definitely upset you. You obviously know what's going on, Chuck, with Doge right now, with everything there. Yep. This is one of three stories that I just want to bring up quickly. So we're going to talk about the hurricanes in Florida. We're going to talk about the fires in Los Angeles, and we're going to be talking about the people who are fired from Doge. Those are three things that affected, you know, huge areas of the population. And cyber criminals are using those three things to exploit, you know, the regular people. And you might not have heard of this, but this came out this past week. I was in Orlando talking with one of our partners who has some of their clients work for the government. And right after they got let go with Doge, the cyber criminals were reaching out because there was a breach list they found, and they were reaching out to people who had lost their jobs or had potentially lost their jobs, saying, we want to give you a stipend or a payout, and here is the info we need. Social security number, blah, blah, blah. And in Florida last year with the hurricanes, there was people who were exploiting those homes and cities that were completely devastated, saying, we can help you with insurance. We just need your $500 deposit to get the ball rolling. Same thing in LA. So what I'm getting at, cyber criminals are figuring out things that are happening, geographical and geological events, and they're using that against all of us, which is so scary. Yep. When we're talking about AI-assisted phishing emails, these are just a few examples. There's so many, but I wanted to just pick a few of what cyber criminals are doing. It's making it easier for anyone to generate content. So they can come up with an email, a white paper, you know, a report when they send that off. And they can do that so quickly these days. They don't have to put any thought into it. You know, natural language processing. Natural language processing allows you to create realistic content. AI chatbots and different languages. These are all things that ChatGPT can use to attack businesses. And when we're talking about cyber crimes, probably the craziest thing is that if we're looking at GDP in the world, USA, largest GDP on earth, 20 trillion. China's in second with 14 trillion. The country of my birth, the UK, 3 trillion. And cyber crimes are now the third largest economy on earth. Wow. Okay. Chuck, any guesses? It's between 14 and 3, just so you know.
I'm going to say 7.
$10.5 trillion.
Wow.
So if you took all the cyber crimes, you put that into a GDP and said it was an economy, the third largest. If that doesn't give everybody listening a reason for pause, you go, okay, this kind of leads into pen testing. So what can we do to help this? So when we're talking about 10.5 trillion, this is the global cost of cyber crimes. And now 73% of these cyber attacks are targeting small and medium-sized businesses. And the reason why, this used to be 73% was enterprise. They're going after the big fish. They want to hook a whale, so to speak. And now they know these companies have cyber solutions in place. They are doing security awareness training. They have, you know, AI-based email programs to block a lot of this malicious email. They have a managed SOC. So they have someone who's monitoring their environment 24/7, 365. So they're going after that low-hanging fruit. You know, just in the past year, to give an example, my uncle's carpet company got hit by a cyber security attack. Okay. It was a ransomware attack. They were down for 2.5 weeks. Okay. Wow. They didn't go out of business, but, you know, they probably do a couple million in sales. So 2.5 weeks of no sales.
No sales. Yeah. That's
the biggest thing was, you know, what's going to go on with their reputation. Yep. I have a property that I rent out downtown Vancouver. Our property management company got attacked. So they're going after the low-hanging fruit where they can these days. But what really is pen testing, Chuck? What movie is this? Do you know what movie this is?
I don't know if I know this one actually.
This is good old Jerry Maguire.
Oh, Jerry Maguire. Nice.
You probably watched that, right?
I have seen that. Yes. It's been quite a while, but yes.
Yeah. Cuba Gooding Jr., where Tom Cruise says, help me, help you. Well, what pen testing is, help me hack you.
Hack you. Like that.
That's an easy way to explain what pen testing is. And what it comes down to is what's keeping businesses up at night. If you have a business, it's not a wait and hope time anymore. A lot of companies still do that. Like my uncle's carpet company, they were hoping we won't be the next one hit. And what pen testing does, it identifies security gaps, and it also allows our good guys to act like bad guys. So an internal network pen test or an external network pen test is actually having our team of ethical hackers go in and hacking a business to see how that business is vulnerable, and so that we can take the next steps to mitigate that. So a lot of people ask, well, Miles, who needs a pen test? And for certain industries now in 2025, moving into 2026, you need to be doing a pen test to become compliant, okay? And to meet the requirements of cyber liability insurance. So if you are in finance or manufacturing, healthcare, technology, government, education now, oil and gas, investments, insurance, or IT services, this is something that your cyber liability insurance, it's going to be a box that you have to check and say, I'm doing between 1 and up to 4 pen tests a year, okay? And a lot of these industries you see here, they've already been doing this. If you're not in one of these industries, you're going to probably have to do this coming up, because that'll be something that becomes part of being compliant and making sure you can operate as a business. And of course, with our solution with Vonahigh, we meet compliance. That's what it comes down to. It's not just ticking a box. I know everyone has to tick that box, but you need to make sure you're compliant and also you're protected at the end of the day. So we took a look at all of the thousands of pen tests we do every year, and this is how it broke down for us personally. I like to give this because a lot of times people go, oh, what? Construction companies are doing pen tests now? They are. Education held off for so long because they thought, well, why would, a cyber criminal want little Mikey's grade 9 mathematics report card info? And it's all about PII these days, personally identifiable information. They also know that little Mikey probably has a Roblox account. He also may have an account for Uber or Amazon. And they know that kids and old people do a thing called password recycling. So they can attack a business or a school or a city. They know they're going to get a trove of information that they can use to open doors for their next cyber attack. Legal, IT services, government. So it kind of goes all across the spectrum here about who is doing pen tests with us currently. And each year at our company, we do a lookout at what's going on in the business world. So we interview 1,600 business leaders from all around the world. 89% of those business leaders are in North America, and the rest is in Europe and Asia. And we ask them, what type of products are you adding to your business this year? And the largest jump we saw, this was 15% in 2023. Obviously, this came out at the end of 2024. So the largest jump we saw was that businesses said, we are adding pen testing. And maybe we're giving some businesses a lot of credit, saying they're super smart. But what it comes down to, if they get told by their MSP or their cyber liability insurance company that they need to do this, that's why they've added it. So I would love to say they're all smart, they all have that foresight, but most of the time they're told you need to do it because you have to be compliant. Yeah.
That's a huge jump.
And when we're talking about pen testing going mainstream, you know what? I probably won't even be able to do a presentation like this in a year or two, because everyone will know what pen testing is. It will probably be all over Hollywood. People will be talking about hacking your business to make sure you're not hackable. And this is where pen testing has come mainstream, the end of 2024 into 2025, with more than 2/3 of respondents that we talk to test at least twice per year. So that's kind of become the baseline, and more than 1/3 test at least 3 times. And there's a small percentage in certain industries like finance where they have to test 4 times a year or quarterly. And jumping into 2025, we're here now. I cannot believe it's 2025. We're over 2 months in now. And everybody says, Miles, what are some of the hot topics you're talking about when you're on the road? I spend anywhere from 20 to 25 weeks each year on the road talking about cyber hygiene, talking about cyber attacks, talking about what businesses can do to protect themselves. And this year, the two biggest things I'm talking about are pen testing and compliance. And compliance was not something we talked about a lot in 2024, but there's industries now that were never in need of regulation that now have to be compliant. Chuck, you probably heard back in, I think it was mid-June, of the CDK attack. That was the attack on the largest car dealership network in North America. Yep. And you know what? Car dealers never had to be compliant before. And now they say that's for the next industry.
Yep. Being pushed into it. Yep.
Yeah. And you know what? I wanted to try and keep this to about 20 to 20 minutes, plus Q&A. But all jokes aside, working in cybersecurity is not stressful at all. This is something I've been doing for 5 years. Cybersecurity is now in my blood. I obviously told the phishing story earlier, but this is something that everyone has to deal with. It's not just from the CEO down. And that's what I say. Cyber criminals are going after the low-hanging fruit. When you bring on a new employee, cybersecurity awareness training and phishing simulation has to be the first thing you are talking about with your new hire. I know it's not, but it has to be, because cyber criminals are looking on LinkedIn. They're looking on job boards. They know that the weakest link is that person who's just joined the company, because they might not have cybersecurity awareness training for 3 to 6 months. And they know that, you first start a job, you don't want to ask a lot of questions. You don't want to ask for help more than you already are. Yeah. And what it comes down to is these cyber criminals are going after that weakest link. Whether it's someone who's just left your company or someone who's just started, those are the type of accounts they want to hack into. And cyber criminals never attack when you want it to happen. I know you don't ever want it to happen, but they're never attacking at 12:30 on a Tuesday. They're attacking on July 4th, Christmas Eve, on a weekend. And that is why knowing who to call, what to do, and what the next steps are, having that playbook in place.
And a plan. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm gonna end it there. I'm gonna also throw my LinkedIn into the chat. Give me a second here. And now, if we got some questions, I'd love to take some, if you have any.
Let's see. Looks like we have Jonathan has a note reader on. He was our prospect. I don't know if he is on, or he just has his note taker on. Ryan, did you have any questions? I'm going to put it in the chat or jump on.
No, sorry, it was giving me a little grief unmuting myself. Miles, I appreciate that. I'm actually newer to the company here, and just was really insightful to get a little bit more background on pen testing. It's something we're wanting to get the word out about, and like you said, before it becomes a mainstream thing where everyone's doing it, you really want to get in while the iron's hot, right? If you're able to do that beforehand, that gives you a leg up compared to anyone else, and it could be anyone, like you said, your uncle's company. Doesn't have to always be the big fish. So I no, very insightful. I appreciate that. And I can relate. I was born in Toronto, so I don't have, I don't have the accent as much as you do. I don't live there anymore, but always good to be a part of that. So no, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I love those insights. And this is the thing. I mean, pen testing 5 years ago, you could have asked 100 people what pen testing is, and they would have had no clue. And now maybe 25% of the population knows what pen testing is. In 2 years, it'll be 50%. And in 5 years, it'll be completely mainstream. Phishing was something that nobody knew about 10 years ago. And now everybody knows about phishing. And it's these type of things, getting in there, figuring out what works for you and your business. But when it comes down to pen testing, this is something that we didn't even, have to deal with 5 years ago, because cyber criminals weren't attacking small and medium-sized businesses. Maybe the large-scale businesses had a team that they would use of ethical hackers, but now this is a legitimate career for a lot of these cyber criminals, and they know that they're going to be thwarted by pen testers. And that's something that they're going up against. And it's going to be interesting to see what goes on over the next few years because we're not seeing a slowdown anytime soon.
Miles, for people that will be listening or hearing this later, can you talk a little bit about how hands-on it is for them? Like what the process would look like for them to go through using the tool?
Yeah. So, I mean, they would obviously reach out to you, Chuck, and, you're one of our partners. So, the tool will be deployed and typically, you get your report back within 48 hours. In the past with some pen testing, I'll just let Kyle in here. In the past with some pen testing, you might wait 2 weeks to a month. And that was a real big hindrance on a business to find out what's going on. So now through our system, you can get it done really quickly. And then you can, obviously take the next steps to make sure, you're looking after, your cyber hygiene. And, that report gives you details, what you need to do and how you need to move to make sure your business is protected.
Perfect. And then also, can you touch on, so a lot of people ask as well, is this like an audit versus a scan or a test? Is this technically considered an audit? Can you touch on that for people that might be listening?
So audits are usually done through vulnerability scanning. So quite a bit different. Vulnerability scanning shows where you're vulnerable, but with Vonahai, we're actually hacking in and actually figuring out what the hackers would do. And it's much more intense. I know a lot of people say, oh, vulnerability scanning, we'll do a mini pen test. And I jokingly say there's not really such thing. It's either vulnerability scanning or pen testing. And pen testing is like vulnerability scanning on steroids.
Perfect. That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Kyle, did you have any questions?
Yes. Would you still recommend for compliance-based clients that they get an independent third party, like quote unquote live pen test every few years with this service, or is this positioning itself to completely replace that need for somebody who needs regular compliance audits?
Yeah, this would be position itself to completely replace that. So because we're meeting compliance needs, I love the fact that you're thinking about this stuff, Kyle, because most of the people I talk to aren't. And the times of like waiting a couple years to do a pen test, that could be the difference between you having a business and not. So I love that question, but this would definitely replace doing that pen test because we would say, you know what, whether it's 1, 2, or 4 times a year, this would be your next step. And with everything, none of this will ever guarantee that you're going to be, immune to a cyber attack. I always say it's like an onion. It's a layered approach. If you have a house and you have a wall outside that house, that will stop people from breaking in. If you have a security system, that will stop people from breaking in. If you have a dog, that will help. So you want to give yourself as much of a fighting chance as you can. So layering up with the most protection you can is the way we think is the most powerful, because nowadays these cyber criminals, if they can't get in the front door, they'll go in the back, or they'll go in a window, or they'll jump over the side. So, giving yourself that fighting chance is what I always recommend.
I love that. That's great. Perfect. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I think we can wrap this up.
I had one.
Oh,
I had one
Kyle.
more.
Yep.
Sure.
What's your take on informational items that come out of pen testing? Because I've seen obviously high critical medium. How important do you realistically consider those in tracking down remediation for every one of them?
I mean, I would say obviously. It sounds like you're at a racetrack, Kyle. I like it. So every one of those would be a case-by-case basis, and that's why you work with a partner like Chuck. If you had some examples, we could dive in, but that's where you want the expertise of an MSP. And working with our team, giving that report and saying, here's what you need to do at a very base level to start protecting yourself after the report.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great questions. Awesome. Very nice. Well, Miles, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. We will make sure to get this out to everyone so they can hear it. And I will make sure to tag your LinkedIn if you're okay with that. And
Yeah, of course.
yeah. Maybe we'll see you at an event sometime soon.
Yeah, hopefully Vegas
Yeah.
or Miami, like we talked about earlier. Let's try and do it, Chuck. I think you've earned yourself a break from daddy daycare. There you go.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you again so much, Miles. I appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your week. And thank you, everybody, for jumping on.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Miles. Yep. Be well.